All right, guys, on number 3, it says that the Coast Guard has set a rescue helicopter to retrieve passengers off a disabled ship. The ship has called in its position as 1.7 miles from shore. So that's already in our picture. When the helicopter passes over a buoy that is known to be 1.3 miles from shore, the angle formed by the shore and the helicopter and the disabled ship is 90 degrees. Determine what the altimeter, a device to measure altitude of planes, okay, which is really just the height, okay? And we have to determine what that is. So basically, that is our altitude. And you can see where the device gets its name from. To the nearest foot, so it's going to come out to be a decimal, when the helicopter is directly over the buoy. Okay. And they wanted to figure out foot. And if you notice, all of our dimensions are in miles. And so that's why they're giving us a little bit of a conversion right here. We have to know that 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So what we're going to do is, because we want our answer to come out in feet, we're going to have to change these miles to feet. Okay, so if 1 mile equals 5,280, 1.3 miles, if we multiply by 5,280, comes out to equal 6864. So 6,864 feet. Okay, so we're going to replace that. We have 1.7 miles. Okay, multiply that by 5,280, and that comes out to 8,976 feet. So now we can replace that. All right, and if we do a little bit of subtraction, we can figure out our second projection comes out to be 2,112. Okay, so that the part plus the part equals the whole hypotenuse. And now we can go ahead and say that we're solving for our altitude. Okay, and this is projection 1, this is projection 2, and this is our whole hypotenuse. Okay, so we're going to use pigs are awesome pets, since we have our altitude that we're solving for. And remember, the p's are 1's a 1 and 1's a 2. Okay? All right, here we go. Projection 1 comes out. 6,864 goes in. Altitude is x, same altitude of x. In our projection 2, we did the subtraction and got 2,112. We'll cross multiply. We end up with x squared equals, it's going to be a big number. Let's see, 144, 9, 6, 7, 6, 8. Put in our commas, we got 14,496,768. And we're going to cross our fingers that that's a perfect square, because we have to square root. And we type it in, and it is not. We actually already knew that, because remember, the rounding directions to the nearest foot are up at the top. So we'll write down most of our decimals. Okay, we put a little dot, dot, dot to show you we're not rounding yet. And to the nearest foot would be the 7. We look at the 4, and it's not going to move it. And so we're going to go ahead and say that x is equal to 3,807 feet. And that is to the nearest foot, the height of the plane. Okay, good. One last one. Number 4. It says that Jack stands 9 feet from the primate enclosure at a zoo. So we got a cage here, okay, and a primate inside. And his lines of sight, oh, I forgot Jack. There is Jack. And he's standing 9 feet from the enclosure. Okay. It says that the vertical distance between his line of sight and the bottom of the enclosure. So maybe I should have put that line a little bit up further. So his line of sight to the bottom of the enclosure is 5 feet. And what else do they tell us? Oh no. Okay. So this picture is a little tough to draw. Let me get an eraser in here. I'm going to figure out a different way to do this problem. Well, draw the problem. So what I think they mean when they said he looks straight ahead. So from his eyeball, straight ahead, that's 9 feet. I had that bar a little too low. Okay. And then it says the vertical distance between his line of sight and the bottom of the enclosure, this is 5 feet. They want to know what is the height of the enclosure to the nearest tenth. So they want to know this distance here. Okay, so tough question. So I'm thinking that this is my right angle up here, that this is my altitude. That 5, I guess I can call that projection 1. And we're looking to solve for the hypotenuse of the right triangle. And so because we have the altitude, we're going to go ahead and say pigs are awesome pets. We'll make that a P1 and a P2. I have a P1. Our P1 is 5. The altitude is 9. And that's the same altitude of 9. But we have to realize we're actually solving for P2 here. Okay. And so we'll call that Y. Since we don't want to switch what we're calling X, we still have to solve for that at the end. So a little bit tricky, but our P2 is the variable. Okay. We'll cross multiply and we end up with 5y equal to 9 times 9, which is 81. We'll divide by 5 and y comes out to equal 16.2. So when we go back, we have to remember that we just solved for our second projection, which is 16.2. And now that we have the two projections, we can add them together and end up with 21.2 feet for our hypotenuse, which is the height of the enclosure. So a little bit of a tough question there with the picture. Okay. All right, guys. So hopefully we have had enough practice with our two proportions. You know what the pieces of the triangle are. You know the projections are. Okay. And you know how to plug in and cross multiply and solve successfully. All right. I'll see you guys on the next day.